All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started while you all are sitting down. My name is Corey. I'm one of the pastors here, and we're so glad you're here at Sunnyside.
Yeah, and my name is Joe. I am this. Whoa. They're still excited. We got them all riled up.
I know.
So my name is Joe, and I'm the student pastor / impressions pastor here at Sunnyside. And so you're like, why in the world do we just have to move around and do this? I don't like colors. I don't like moving. I don't like this. But we're going to have a little fun this morning, okay? The goal is we're going to play a game. We're going to have a little fun. What's going to happen is I'm going to put a image, a slide on the screen. And on that slide, there are going to be some things that are affiliated with a particular generation. Okay, maybe some music, some icons of the time, some events that happened. They'll be on the screen, and your job is to try to guess which generation this belongs to. But if you know that it's your generation, you cannot answer. The other generations have to answer. Make it a little bit fun, make it a little challenging, okay? So here, let's try this out. Let's go ahead and do the first one. All right, so what we got going on here? Corey, let's see. We got, who's that guy in the red jersey?
The red jersey. Is that LeBron James?
No, LeBron, he's way better than that guy.
Michael Jordan.
So we got Michael, we got MTV was around, popular in this time, Gulf War. Okay, so what do we think is going on here? Green?
I hear green. I hear green is the most popular one, so.
Green?
Is that correct?
That is correct. So this is Generation X. Generation X. All right, let's put the other next one up on the screen. All right. Oh, man, what is going on here? The great thing is I'm sure some of these generations looking at like, what is that? Yellow? So they just knew instantly. They're like,
right.
YouTube, technology.
Yeah, everything goes
gotta
over.
be. All right, so that is Generation Z. That is you guys. Can I hear some shout outs for Generation Z? Make some noise over here. Oh, that was good.
That wasn't that good.
Very good.
That wasn't that good.
All right. Sorry, Gen Xers, I didn't give you the chance. All right, so what we got going on here? And you guys are looking at like, who is that?
Red.
Blue?
Not blue.
Red.
They
Corey,
got black and white pictures up there. It's not blue.
Hey, listen, that's just creativity. Corey, you know any of those people on there?
I do. Bing Crosby, actually, he's in one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. So
Very good.
Holiday Inn, love that guy.
Awesome. Yes, so this is our silent generation. All right.
Give it up for the silent generation.
I love it. All right, what do we got next? All right, so what we got going on here? Bye, bye, bye.
I can do the dance for you if you need to. So.
Please do. Oh, I love it. It makes my heart so happy. So I heard some blue. Blue. Okay. The cell phone coming around for the first time.
Will
My
Smith.
man, Fresh Prince. Oh, so good.
Let me
Yes.
tell you a story. I'm just going to go ahead.
Once was all about how my life got twisted upside down. All right. So this is millennials. Very good. Millennials, let me hear some noise over here. Oh, my gosh.
That's
How
kind
did I
of
know
what we
that was
expected.
going to happen?
That's what we expected.
I
from that
expected nothing less.
group. Aren't you part of the millennial group?
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
a millennial.
He is. He's a millennial. So
But you know, aren't you technically a millennial too?
my birthday kind of falls in that date. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, I don't want to hear it.
Barely.
All right, so I think we got one more. What do we got going on here? Okay. Well, this is a good generation right here. Oh.
We've narrowed it down. Hopefully you all figure this one
Yep.
out. So.
Process.
Boomers in the house.
Millennials, y'all gonna have to do a better job next time than that. They just destroy. So we got Elvis, Beatles, Martin Luther King, baby boomers. Wow. I love it. All right, so that was fun. Real quick, I want to give you just a brief definition and some characteristics that apply to each of these generations, okay? So here we go. The silent generation, they were about working within the system. They did this by keeping their heads down and working hard, thus earning themselves the silent label. Their attributes lean toward not being risk takers and playing it safe. They often heard on a regular basis, children should be seen and not heard.
Says all the boomers who were raised by these guys.
Them, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. but they heard that from their parents a lot. Some characteristics of you wonderful young people over here: discipline, upholding of values, gratitude and appreciation for the simplicities in life. This senior population is best characterized by a strong sense of determination and willpower.
Foundation of our society.
Yeah, give it up for those guys. So baby boomers, here we go. I love it.
We could just skip them, actually. You can
Yeah,
go
for
on
real.
those.
We need to humble these guys. So boomers are widely associated with privilege as a group. Baby boomers were wealthier, more active, and more physically fit than any preceding generation, and were the first to grow up genuinely expecting the world to improve with time. The term baby boom refers to a noticeable increase in the birth rate. And if you think about, the war was over, daddy's coming home. We'll let you guys put the pieces.
We have the next generation in here right now, so let's keep
we'll
it
let
at
you.
that.
We'll let you guys.
But
put
you
those
notice
pieces
there's
together.
more of them.
No doubt.
So
That is really interesting. Some characteristics of you guys include a vested interest in a professional outlook and a strong sense of self in their employment status. A significant portion of their lives were spent at work. Strong work ethic. So, give yourselves a round of applause for that.
because nobody else is going to clap for you.
Well, I know the millennials aren't going to say a word for anybody,
Yeah,
so thanks, guys, for that. So Gen Xers. Gen Xers were children during a time of shifting societal values, and as children were sometimes called the latchkey generation due to reduced adult supervision as children compared to the previous generations as a result of increasing divorce rates and increased maternal participation in the workforce prior to widespread availability of childcare options outside the home. Some characteristics of you guys: independent, resourceful, and self-sufficient. They value freedom and responsibility in the workplace. Many in this generation display a causal disdain for authority and structured work hours.
So they're obstinate.
Yep.
Okay, just making sure.
So give it up for yourselves. Good for you guys. All right, millennials, here we go. Millennials are partly named what they are because the earliest of the millennials became an adult around the turn of the millennium. They are considered to be nurtured and pampered by parents who didn't want to make the same mistakes as the previous generations. Yep.
So they're making up for what these guys did, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I heard pampered down here emphasized. Some characteristics of us: confident, ambitious, and achievement-oriented. They also have high expectations of their employers, tend to seek new challenges at work, and aren't afraid to question authority.
Okay.
No generation, this is crazy, no generation has been as publicly reviled, praised, misunderstood, and analyzed as the millennials. So good job for you guys, for us.
There's hope.
There's hope.
Us.
There's hope.
I
And
still
last
can't
but
believe I'm
certainly
in that
not
category.
least, all these beautiful faces over here. Got our Gen, yeah, make some noise. Here we go. Oh, y'all are weak.
They're Gen Zers.
They're on their phones. That was great. Man, that's tough.
changing the world on their phones.
Generation defined, often referred to as, sorry guys, the snowflake generation. Gen Z is viewed as being less resilient and more prone to taking offense than the previous generations. They have used, y'all are like, yes, that's not a good thing. Yeah, that offended them. This is great. All right. They have used the internet since a young age and are more comfortable with technology and social media than most generations. As a matter of fact, this is crazy, Corey, they have never seen the world without the internet.
That's hard to believe. That's crazy.
Unbelievable. They typically prefer texting or social media as their main means of communication. Many times over, most of the time over face-to-face communication. Here's some characteristics of you guys, though. They have a desire for new information. They are on their phones and on the internet, searching the web a lot, but typically is to gain new information. They're independent, self-confident, and autonomous. So give you guys a round of applause. Now, here's the deal. I hope that no one took offense to these characteristics or these time frames. These actually, they might not even be 100% accurate, okay? But here's the thing. These are just generational markers. They don't identify you guys as individuals. This isn't who and what you are. This is just how culture sees these generations. But what matters most, and that needs to be understood and recognized, is that all of these generations are different, but they're similar in one way, in that at one point, you were all the next generation. Mm-hmm. You guys were the next generation. And you guys were were the next generation. Boomers. Gen X, you were the next generation. Millennials, I want to talk to you guys. You guys will one day be the next generation.
And I think that's very important for us to understand as we kind of lay a foundation for what we're going to talk about today. We're actually in a season of seeing is what we've been defining this. And if you were here with us last week, we kind of made the official transition between Eric and I in this lead pastor role. And what we've been doing is we've been kind of laying a foundation for kind of where we want to go and what we want to look like as a church. And so we're kind of laying that foundation. Right now we're in a series called Seeing 2020. And one of the things that we recognize and we realize that if we're ever going to accomplish the mission that God has set before us, we have to start seeing people again. And so what we've been doing is we've been putting some categories to our mission. And so if you're not familiar with our mission here at Sunnyside, it's simply this. We are a people following Jesus to those not yet. Now, that terminology, those not yet, is a little bit ambiguous, and that's one of the reasons why we're coming back and circling around to talk about this, because we want to be able to help you all put some flesh on what it means to those not yet. Like, who are we actually talking about? And if you were here with us last week, we actually opened this up by talking about neighbors not yet. And if you missed that message, you can always go online and catch that message. Next week, we're actually going to be taking a look at nations not yet. I've actually got some friends that have flown in from out of country. They're going to be coming in and hanging out with us, talking about it. They're currently doing a ministry in North China to get into North Korea, doing some incredible things. And so you all are not going to want to miss next week. But today, we are going to shift our focus to one of the things that actually might be one of the most important things that we can actually focus our efforts and energies in terms of those not yet. And that's next generations not yet. Next generations not yet. What I want you guys to do is I'm going to give you all a statement to stare at. Okay, it's going to be up here on the screen. I want you to read this to yourself for just a moment. Read this statement.
Ooh.
Now I want you to say it out loud. Go ahead. Kids.
I'm glad you said it. I was thinking it.
Kids are more important than adults. I got to tell you, the very first time I heard this phrase, I wanted to challenge it. I want to push back on it. I'm an adult. I'm not a kid. I matter just as much as anybody else matters. But when I started to dig into this, I started to look at the words of Jesus. I started to look at some of the statistics and everything else that surround us. What I came to realize is that this statement is more true than what I might want to think it is. And I've come to embrace this as a truth in my own life because it does matter. And what I've come to realize is that this is less of a statement of value as much as it is a statement of priority.
That's good. A
statement of priority. Kids are more important than adults. And I think this is echoed in Jesus' sentiments and his very words. As a matter of fact, what we see is we see his disciples sitting on the side of the road. They're walking on the road, and they're having this conversation about who's the greatest among them, who's going to be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven, all that kind of stuff. And Jesus wants to refocus them away from these nominal issues that they're dealing with. And so what does he do? What does he do? He takes a kid whom he had placed among them, and he puts him on his lap. And this is what he says. He takes the child in his arms and he says, whoever welcomes one of these little ones, one of these little children in my name, welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not just welcome me, but also he who sent me. Now, Jesus could address this situation in a number of different ways. He could have just sat them down and been like, guys, you guys got this all wrong. You're thinking about it wrong. Peter's really my favorite, or whatever he wanted to do at that point, right? But he doesn't do that. What he does is he sits and he takes a kid and he puts them on his lap. He raises up the next generation and he says, guys, you all are worrying about the wrong thing. This is what we should be focusing in on. These kids, these little ones, this next generation, these are who are precious to me. These are who are significant to me, a lot more than what you think is important to you. We need to focus on him. Now, Jesus doesn't only do this and show significance in this particular moment. Several times during his ministry, he calls out the significance of kids. In Matthew 11, he says that things were revealed to the little children instead of the wise. In Matthew 18, he says, you must become like a child to enter into heaven. And again, he says, if you will welcome a child, you welcome me and he who sent me. In Matthew 19, he says, let the little children come to me. They were trying to keep them away. They were going to be a distraction and a nuisance. And so even the disciples were like, no, you can't come in. And Jesus says, no, open up the floodgates. Let these kids come to me because I value them. They are precious to me. They are significant to me and they should be a priority for you. And in other places, he tells us that there's harsh punishment reserved for those who would harm or mislead any of these little ones. So I want to introduce you guys today to the big idea that if you don't catch anything else, I want you all to hear this today. You saw the statement to stare at, right? Kids are more important than adults. Well, what does that mean for us? And here it is. All generations are important, but the next generation must become a priority.
Man, that is so good. So good, Corey. I agree 100%. It's awesome to think about the fact that the creator of the universe affirms that. And that's so important to him. Now, maybe Jesus affirming this idea that kids are more important than adults isn't enough to convince you, but maybe some statistics will. Maybe you're a data person. You like numbers. So check this out. 83% of all Christians make their commitment to follow Jesus between the ages of 4 and 14.
Let that sink in just for a minute. Because I think sometimes we skip over those statistics. Of all the people who make decisions to follow Christ, they do so by the age of 14.
That's before they even get into high school. Mm-hmm. 2 of my children are over 4 years old, and that's a little scary to think about this percentage. I mean, it's crazy. What it tells me is I still have a lot of work to do. I'm curious, raise your hand in here if you have a child in that age range, between 4 and 14. Raise your hands high, okay? What about if you have a grandchild in that age range, okay? What about maybe a niece or a nephew, some other family, okay? All right. That number really starts to hit home when you think about someone in your life who's in that age range. How about this? Raise your hand, raise your hand if you were between 4 and 14 when you decided to give your life to Jesus. Yeah. This number is huge. It is so important. So important. These are some of, if not the most important years developmentally, physically, emotionally for young people. Those years are the years that they're most likely going to commit to following Jesus. The times where they're the most impressionable and easily influenced. And actually, it goes up to 95% at the age of 30. By the age of 30, 95% of people will give their lives to Jesus. I'm not sure if those numbers hit you as much as they hit me when I first heard them, but think about that for just a second. That means that the chances of someone committing to following Jesus after the age of 30 is slim to none. It's slim to none. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible and that it can't happen, but that is a huge statistic, and that's a big deal. It's just much more unlikely. Again, all generations are important, but the next generation must be a priority. It must be a priority. Now, clearly, being exposed to Jesus at an early age is extremely important, but it's not just about exposure and acceptance. It's not just about exposure and acceptance. Faith, it has to continue to be cultivated and invested in. Lifeway research suggests that 70% of young adults who were previously involved in the church drop out of the church at some point in time.
So it's not just 85% before the age of 14, but of that group that comes to Christ, we're seeing 70% of them actually falling away from the church after they leave our homes.
Man, yeah, and those are heartbreaking numbers. Yeah. I mean, it almost brings tears to my eyes, but I think there's a question that we have to ask ourselves and be ready to be responsible for, and it's this: why is the next generation leaving the church, and more importantly, their faith in such astounding waves? Mm-hmm. Why? Why is this happening? There's actually a study done where teenagers were asked this open-ended question. It was this: why did you fall away from the faith in which you were raised? The number one answer was intellectual skepticism. Intellectual skepticism. What does that even mean? What is that all about? It means that they're questioning everything they grew up believing. Every truth that they held to, they're questioning those beliefs. But why? Why is that happening? And I believe it's because, one, they're exposed to a lot of other thoughts. The world is just pounding them every single day with so many different thoughts and beliefs and understanding.
Let me expound upon that just for a minute. So you're talking about how, like, the cell phone generation, right? They have more information, or at least thoughts, not necessarily truth, but they have more information available to them right now more than ever before. And so all of these different thoughts and ideas, and you can find foundations for anything if you wanted to go searching for it. And that's one of the things that's causing a lot of confusion. This is the information overload.
It is. They're asking questions. They want to know why. So again, the first, they're being exposed to so many other things. The second thing, they're not making their faith their own before they leave our homes. It just happens less and less. I love what Perry Noble says about this idea of making your faith your own. He says, I believe the next generation is not content with borrowing the faith of their parents. They're asking questions and seeking to understand what they believe and why they believe it. And them doing that is going to equip them to take the church to the next level. The reality is, Corey, we can't just bring the next generation to church Sunday after Sunday, year after year, give them over to the world and expect that they're going to continue to love and follow Jesus. It just doesn't work like that. We have to create a safe place for them to ask those questions.
Yeah.
We have to be prepared to give them the answers that they're looking for. We have to create opportunities for them to build a solid foundation for their faith. And we, as the previous generations, we have to constantly let them know that we are here for them, that we want to invest in them. And the only way, honestly, I believe that that's going to happen is if we, the previous generations, we jump in and we move along with their faith journeys and we pour into them and we love on them. Man, Jesus' view on the next generation, along with some of these hard-to-hear statistics, has to create a sense of urgency in us. We have to feel the sense of urgency, hopefully an urgency that moves us to want to do something about it, to love on, to invest on, to pour into these guys, to get involved. And if it doesn't honestly create a sense of urgency, I mean, we saw the numbers. The reality is that it could be detrimental.
Yeah.
It really can be. So again, all generations are important, but the next generation has to be a priority.
Whether we like it or not, there's a time stamp on the next generation. There's a time stamp, or there's a time frame on the kids that we are raising as to whether or not they'll come to know Jesus Christ. And so we have to make this a priority. And the reality for us is that while we're busy making adult decisions, which are all very important things for us to do, our next generations, our kids, are making eternal decisions. While we're working things out to try to figure out how we're going to make retirement work and what we're going to do with our vacation time and what our career is going to be like and how to raise our kids, all that kind of stuff, those are important things that are life decisions we got to make. Our next generation are making eternal decisions, and that has to take a priority for us. Now, I hear grumblings, and we've heard it a lot with the millennials and that generation and everything else, but we hear grumblings about how disappointed we are with the next generation and where our society is going, and we don't like all of this kind of stuff. We don't like the kind of direction the world is living in, and we start to blame it on the next generation. But let me ask you this. Who raised them? Who's really responsible? Don't point fingers. Don't point fingers. Guys, if you don't like the world that we're living in, if you don't like the way or the direction that it's going, you don't like the way that the new generation is shaping up, do something about it. You see, we shape the next generation that ultimately shapes the world that we live in. We have that prerogative. We have that responsibility. Guys, we have that opportunity. We shape the next generation that will ultimately shape our world, and therefore we must make them a priority. Now, what you all need to know is pure and simple. Here at Sunnyside, we're going to love on all generations, okay? We're going to love on all generations.
Not going to leave anybody out.
Not leaving anybody out. Understand that each generation actually has something to be done, something to be said, some kind of investment to be made, right? And so we're going to love on every generation, but we need to understand that as a church, when we're following Jesus, to those not yet, it has to start with the next generation. All of us have to pour ourselves into this next generation, which will ultimately then be one of us that's pouring into the next generation, because that's how this church and this mission will be accomplished. And so what we want to do is take a few moments to just talk practically about what this looks like and how we as a church are doing this and how you all might be able to embrace that on your own. So as a church, as Sunnyside, one of the things you need to understand is that kids, our next generation, are an incredible priority to us. Some of you guys have noticed that we've been doing some construction along this wing over here. When I came on in July, one of the things we decided to do is, as a staff, we actually vacated those offices there, and we're up here in the corner sharing kind of an office together so that we can actually give our prime space to our kids. Because with a facility like this, we want to be able to use our facility in large part for our kids and their development to love on them. And so those of you all that have kids understand how inconvenient it can be to bring your kids in and go all the way upstairs to check in and then check in your young ones downstairs, and it just doesn't show a priority. We want people, when they walk into this building, to know your kids matter to us and they actually are a priority to us. And so they're all going to be on one level. We've got our nursery. It's going to be right here, and that's in the construction right now. The current nursery will be our preschool, and then the elementary will actually get the gym on Sunday mornings. And we're just going to love on these guys so that they'll know right from the beginning, your kids matter to us. In addition to that, you need to understand that when you drop your kids off, you're not dropping them off to childcare. You're not dropping them off to a daycare service so that you can come worship and learn. What you're doing is you're investing those kids with us for a little while so that we can love on them and minister to them and teach them and challenge them and encourage them and pray for them so that they might be able to grow up with the faith that is founded, that becomes their own, and that they might be able to stick in their faith long after they leave our homes. So we don't do childcare here, guys. Matter of fact, you say that, we'll slap you in the face, all right? I won't, but Terry will. I'll introduce you to her later. And you don't want me to
want that.
No, you don't.
No.
So we do children's ministry. We do kids ministry, right? And we want to partner with you in that. We'll talk more about that in a minute.
Man, and I absolutely love what Terry and Jill and all these guys are doing. They're doing an incredible job, the volunteers. But another way that we're investing in the next generation is also through our student ministry. We have an incredible student ministry where myself and several other adults, we call them coaches, we invest and we spend a lot of time and we work hard to invest in the lives of these young people. We care so much. Actually, our mission in the student ministry is to help students know, love, and experience Jesus. That's so important to us. We want to make sure that they know who Jesus is, that they love him because of what he's done for them, and that they can experience the things that Jesus has to offer. So important to us. And not just that, but we also, another way that we try to invest in our students is by helping them know the importance of serving others. Serving is a huge part of our student ministry. A couple times during the year, we take a week during spring break and in the summer, and we go and serve local communities and do different types of things. But what we started to realize is that we didn't have as many students serving on Sunday morning as we would like. We saw this deficit. So what we did strategically this last year is we took Wednesday nights and we took Sunday mornings and we combined them together and we moved them to Sunday nights. And what that did, man, it opened up so many opportunities for our students to serve, and not just serve, but to be connected with these other generations. Unfortunately, it's what happens, but we were just our own separate entity, and it was just sad. We didn't have a chance to experience the wisdom that all these other generations had to offer. Actually, there's a study that shows that students need 5 different relational connections to maintain their faith. 5 different relational interactions, specifically adult interactions. And what that did Sunday morning is it opened up to do that. And now I don't know if you guys have noticed, but you see our students all over the place now, holding doors, passing out bulletins with the other generation, working behind the cafe with other generations, greeting these new people and these faces when they come into the doors in the front with the other generations. And man, it has been incredible to see. And it's allowed you guys to have conversations with them, to pour in, to encourage them, to look at them and say, man, I love seeing your face out here. Yeah. It's an incredible sign, and maybe to even pray for them. I've just absolutely loved seeing that.
And some of this programmatic change has to do with the statistic that we showed you about that 70%. So it's not just a matter of getting them to understand who Jesus is before they leave our homes, but being able to have a faith founded well enough to be able to keep them engaged in the faith and in the church after they leave our homes. And that study that shows those, like the greatest correlation to people sticking in their faith and in the church is the amount of interactions they have with guys like you. Not their peers, all right, but guys like you. And that's one of the reasons why we've changed up our programs, so we can put them more in touch with you guys on Sunday mornings.
Absolutely. And if we want our next generation to stay engaged in their faith and to be strong and firm and founded, we have to help them stay connected to the greatest resource, which is Jesus. I love what John says in his gospel, what Jesus says in John's gospel. He says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. Yeah. Man, if we want to impact these guys, we have to help them stay connected. We have to invest. We have to love on them. And a little shameless plug, if you have a student who comes with you on Sunday mornings who hasn't been involved in our student ministry, we actually we're kicking back up tonight, The Point. We call it The Point, and that's from 5:30 to 8 every Sunday evening, and that starts tonight. And we would absolutely love to have your student come and join us.
And that's middle school and high school.
Middle school and high school, yep.
Yeah, and if you guys, don't have your kids already involved in that, Joe and his coaches are doing an incredible job in that. Maybe they were part of it beforehand. Things have shifted up a little bit too. Have them give it another shot, all right? Because it's going to be an incredibly important thing for them. They're doing a great job. Guys, our youth are not the church of tomorrow. They are the church today. The question is how are we shaping them right now so that they can impact the church for the future? And I got to tell you, just because I did youth ministry actually in my years as well, some of the kids that I see in their faith being put into action, it is incredibly challenging and inspiring to me. Some of our kids and our next generation are kicking our butts when it comes to their willingness to share their faith and to explore their faith and to make it their own. Some of you guys are here right now because your kids dragged you to church, right? They're the ones that are saying that every week they want to come and they want to be here and they've got you involved in this. I know entire families that have come to Christ because of a kid who found it themselves in this, and they said that this is a valuable thing to them. And so we want to continue to encourage that. And what we know here at Sunnyside is that it's not actually our obligation or our responsibility solely to raise your kids up in the faith. You see, that's actually done best in the home. Discipleship is done best in the home. Our job is actually to partner with you. And one of the phrases that we'll say here is we want to help families win. We want to help your family win, and we want to partner with you in that. And that's why we partner with you through what we do on Sunday mornings. But we also have other things that we do throughout the week. And you all were doing some stuff even in student ministries, partnering with parents and teaching them and encouraging them. But we have a class that's upcoming as part of one of the groups that we're going to be offering. You'll hear more about that here in a moment. But it's called Intentional Parenting. It's a 6-week course. It's going to be on Wednesday night. There's childcare. Oh, I said childcare. Children's ministry. Smack me, please. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'll keep it nice.
I meant my shoulder, but you can smack my face, I guess.
Sorry, I took advantage of that opportunity.
Right. Intentional parenting class that we're going to be doing. It's going to be really, really beneficial. We know it's hard. It's hard to raise kids on your own. And so we're going to be there to lament and help out and process through this stuff. We want to encourage you guys to do it. Again, 6-week class on Wednesday night starting this week.
Yeah, me and Christy actually went through it. We watched the videos. They have them online. And honestly, it's just super practical, easy things that you can do. It makes you feel a little bad about your parenting, but it's okay. It challenges you, and it gives you some really simple ways to just be a better parent. It's awesome. It's really good.
Yeah. Deep down inside, we all feel bad about our parenting, don't we? Yeah, so it helps whenever other parents are worse parents than us, and we get to hear from them. So, Andy Stanley says it this way, and I love this quote, and it changes the way in which I think about my kids even. Your greatest contribution to the kingdom of God might not be something you do, but someone you raise.
Sorry.
Yep.
That's right.
Thanks, Mom. Appreciate it. My mom, everyone. No,
You did a pretty good job.
She did all right. She did not a bad job. But here's the question though: what is it that you can do to help? What is it that you can do to invest, to pour into these guys, to love on them? One thing that you can do is you can volunteer in our Next Gen ministries by serving with Terry in the kids ministry, children's ministry, or myself and the students. Now listen, if you don't like kids, don't go serve with the kids. We don't want you to hate what you're doing. There are other ways for you to serve. Hear me out. There are other ways and opportunities to invest in other children.
Absolutely. And so, if one of our ministries is not the best fit for you, understand we are still all obligated to the next generation. And so, just because you're not serving it in kids or students, that doesn't exclude you from this particular those not yet, the next generation's not yet. And so, there are other ways in which we can actually go after those that are not yet. Remember, all generations are important, but the next generation must become a priority. So some of you guys, for some of us, it's our kids that are in our home, and this might hit close to home. The very best way that I can invest in the next generation is to be a better parent. So maybe it's your own kids. Maybe it's your grandkids. Maybe you need to spend some more time with them and be more intentional about raising them up. Maybe it's a nephew or a niece or a cousin that is in that particular age range.
Yeah, there's also opportunities like fostering. You can invest in young people who don't have anywhere to go, but they need somebody. There's fostering. There's kids in other countries that you can support through Compassion International, things like that. Madison Elementary, since Corey's come on, he's encouraged us to go over and to serve and to love on these students, whether it's going to play football with those guys and blowing your shoulder out, or just going to sit down and lunch, reading with them, all those different types of opportunities. It's been incredible. Maybe there's a neighborhood kid who might drive you up the wall and you can't stand them, but maybe they need you to love on them. Maybe that's a place that you can start.
I got one of those kids on my street.
You got Dennis the Menace?
He's a Dennis the Menace for sure. So, and he's a bad influence on my kids, and so sometimes I'm like, man, I don't want him to be around my kids.
Go forever, go away.
But you start thinking about this, and you go, man, this is an opportunity.
Yep.
He lives with his grandparents, and you go, man, if I just take a time just to love him, acknowledge him, to see him the way that we should, maybe that will make an influence. And he might not ever show up here, but I can love on him there.
And change his eternal.
Absolutely. We have an opportunity to do that.
And here, one last thing, Corey, the least that any of us can do is honestly pray for this next generation.
Absolutely. Now, you all have heard it said, it takes a village to raise a child, right? I believe that it takes a church to raise a godly child.
Amen.
I believe it takes a gathering of people like this to raise up children of God in the ways that they should go so that will not depart from it. And the reality is we've got the next generation right here among us. And so what I'm going to have them do is I want them to come sit among you, which means you have to move over physically and philosophically, right? You have to move over. And so these kids are going to find their way in. And I know it's crammed in the baby boomers. You all might need to stand up and actually let them come in. And welcome over, wave them this way. These kids, I don't want to sit by their parents right now. I want them to sit by somebody else that they don't necessarily know. So find your way back there. Invite them, guys. Wave them over to you. They're going to come sit by you. Make a space for them. Let them sit among you.
You guys, Gen Z, I want you to do the same thing. Get on up. Come find somebody you don't know.
You guys are the next generation.
Yep, next generation.
We need some of you guys back here in the back over here as well. So come find some spots. Go sit around.
Don't be shy. Plenty of opportunities in the silent generation over here for you guys to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Hey, if you would like to have a conversation with you guys, raise your hand if you're like, hey, come over here, bring them in, invite them over. Yeah. These guys, here you go, hands up everywhere.
While they're doing that, let me just say this along that lines, okay? One of the things that I've been learning lately, and you're going to hear me echo this a lot more because it's something I'm learning, I've come past the age and the maturity that now I expect other people to initiate, okay? What I mean by that is I can no longer expect other people to actually be the ones to approach me or to come to me. And I think a lot of times what we do is we wait for these next generation, for these younger people to come to us. Like we're trying to get them to come to us before we'll actually invest in them. We can't do that any longer, not and accomplish this mission. We have to be the ones who initiate, the ones who invite in. And I tell you, these guys are hungrier for it than you can ever imagine. They need you to do this. And so what we're going to do right now is actually, we're going to do a time of prayer over these kids. And some of you guys have kids right next to you. Others, they're kind of around you. And so just kind of find a kid to focus in on. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to ask what their name is and ask them what the number one thing that you could pray for them is. And then I'm going to give you guys some space and time to do it. If you're not right next to a kid, again, just try to lean in and try to find one. And then I want you all to spend a moment. I just want you to pray over those kids. Look them in the eyes, acknowledge them, see them like you've never seen them before, and pray over them. So we're going to go ahead and give you all time to do that right now. Find out what their name is and what the biggest thing you can pray for is, and go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back up and conclude our time in prayer. Guys, I want, I was just talking to Jill over here. This is special for me. My kids are among you. I can speak to them day in, day out. I can teach them. I can lead them. I can do the very best I can do as a parent. But sometimes the strongest voice in their life, the thing that will actually get through to them, is something you'll say. It's an encouragement that you offer them. It's a prayer that you'll speak over them. It's an identity that you'll speak to them. My kids are amongst you. Your kids are amongst us. These are our kids. Let's not lose a single one. Father, my prayer is that we would have a humility to know that the people that are coming behind us are actually more important than us. Father, I pray that you would help us take every opportunity that we have to be able to love on and speak life in to these kids, that they wouldn't be a nuisance, they wouldn't be some kind of problem, they wouldn't be something that we need to put in a classroom so that we don't see or hear, or they don't distract us, but Father, they would be one of the very reasons that we show up together collectively. And that every time we see these kids, we'd actually stop and we get down on their level and we would love on them. We would show them your love by the way we treat them. Father, allow our church to be different, not just to have these incredible kids programs, but for all of us to be united for the next generation so that we can beat the odds of these statistics, so that 70% of our kids that grew up knowing about you don't fall away from their faith. Because we were involved, because we made ourselves available, because we spoke into their lives. Lord, I pray that what we've just done here, where we've been able to acknowledge and see the face of a kid that we might not have ever seen before. They might have passed by us, but we saw them now, and now we know their name. Lord, I pray that you'd cause us to remember their name and their prayer requests, and not just say a prayer for them now, but throughout this week, Lord, that we would be lifting them up. Thank you so much for all of our coaches and our leaders who devote themselves every week in, week out. They pour over these kids in our kids' ministry, and I pray that you would bring a special blessing upon them, that you give them the wisdom to be able to speak those things so it sits in the hearts of our kids, and they won't depart from that way. Thank you for the opportunity that you've presented among us. Lord, let us make the most of this opportunity. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.